we're going to talk sexual assault, where every 2 minutes someone in this country is sexually assaulted. That's a terrifying statistic, but it's true. We've had a couple of high-profile cases lately, beginning with one out of Colorado where a young man was convicted of rape, the sentence deemed far too lenient. Here's the background on that one.
This former University of Colorado Boulder student, Austin Wilkerson, convicted of rape, and is sentenced, drawing some criticism for what it does not include: prison time.
It's a big deal, and it matters to survivors.
That former CU student, also a rape survivor, giving the judge in Wilkerson's case a searing indictment in a Huffington Post column, writing, "Your sentence tells young men that as long as they are white, show an inkling of remorse for their crime, and behave themselves during trial, they too can rape with impunity without fear of true repercussion." The judge sentencing Wilkerson to 2 years jail time, where he can leave for work or school, and 20 years probation. Prosecutors asked for prison time.
You can't just throw people in prison and throw away the key. There has to be a rehabilitation component.
The 22-year-old found guilty of raping a student after a 2014 St. Patrick's Day party. Court documents stating he told friends she was passed out, while later claiming it was consensual, and then apologizing to his victim in court.
He definitely, in our opinion, and as we argued to the court, throughout the process has given whatever version of the story at that moment is best going to serve him.
The case coming on the heels of Stanford swimmer Brock Turner's 6-month sentence for sexual assault, stirring similar criticism that the punishment was too light.
Yeah, the Brock Turner case, also one of the reasons we're doing this broadcast today. A quick look at his story and the situation that followed.
Brock Turner met by cameras as he arrived at the Greene County Sheriff's Office in Ohio, his mother doing her best to shield him as he enters. For the rest of his life, every 90 days, he must go to an office like this one and register as a Tier 3 sex offender. The former Stanford University swimmer was released from a California jail after serving half of his 6-month sentence for felony sexual assault, a sentence many critics felt was too lenient for his crime. Turner faced up to 14 years behind bars for his assault on an unconscious woman. The judge behind Turner's sentencing decision, Aaron Persky, no longer hearing criminal cases and facing a recall campaign.
I think he should have been in there a lot longer than 3 months and a lot longer than 6 months if he wouldn't have gotten out early. I think he should have been there for the rest of his life.
In his Ohio neighborhood, protesters showing signs of anger as those who live there now feel they've lost their sense of comfort.
When I bought my house, the number one thing I looked at before I did was the sex offender registry list, and there were none in here.
So what about those sentences? Were they too lenient? Do you find them disturbing? Susan Seldon is the executive director of the Cumbie Center in Aiken, a center that does an incredible job of helping victims of sexual assault and rape. Susan, thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you for this invitation.
Well, it's important to talk to you about this, to find out not only what goes on at the Cumbie Center, but sort of what the feel is when it comes to what's happening in our country with these sentences. First of all, do you think that those sentences on those two young men were too lenient? And if so, what's that do to a would-be predator? Does it make him think, oh, I could probably get away with this?
Absolutely. And we at the Cumbie Center were enraged with these sentences and with the idea that people can get away with this. And we are definitely against the people getting off too light for that. But as we know, very few people are ever prosecuted for rape.
Is it just because of what we've always heard, victims are reluctant to come forward?
Victims are reluctant to come forward, but that's because most of them know that rapists will get away.
1 in 5 women will be raped at some point in their lifetime. Yes. 1 in 5? And 1 in 6 boys, 1 in 4 girls sexually assaulted before the age of 18. What sort of age range do you see at the Cumbie Center when you're treating these victims?
We see people from as young as probably 4 or 5 up to grown women.
And mostly, are we talking about situations where they know their attacker or the attackers are strangers, or is it an even mix?
Most of them probably know their attacker, but there are some who what we call stranger rape. But many of them do know their attacker.
You know, I'm sure that the lawyers in these cases were really good at this, but a lot of times the definition of consent comes into play. And so I just wanted you to help give us an idea of consent, and especially if, say, a young lady or a woman, it doesn't matter, is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, can consent be given then? Could the predator, could the attacker use that as a defense? Talk to me about the definition.
Well, what we say for consent is somebody has to be fully conscious to be able to give consent, and if you are under the influence, you cannot give consent.
Okay, so it doesn't, you're at a party late night and you think things are fine. They're not.
They're not. If somebody is intoxicated, they're not capable of giving consent. It should be enthusiastic consent when somebody is sober.
Tell me about whether, isn't it also true that rape and sexual assault can happen within a marriage? That is accurate, right?
Yes, that is accurate.
And the same definition, the same rules of consent apply, I'm guessing. Let me ask you this about our young people. You all are trying to get a curriculum into the local schools. Tell me about the curriculum, what you hope to accomplish, and if you're making any progress.
Well, thank you for asking. We have an excellent curriculum that is endorsed by DHEC, and it has been vetted throughout South Carolina. It's an excellent curriculum called the Youth Violence Prevention Curriculum. We have educators that are ready and highly trained. It's an interactive 6-week curriculum where students can learn about healthy relationships, how to prevent violence, how to recognize signs of violence, how to stop bullying. So, and I really do believe that this is the way to prevent violence in the future, is to start with our young people in early age, because many of them have never seen healthy relationships, don't know what to look for.
What do you mean they've never seen healthy relationships? They just have a horrible home life?
Yes, many of them have a horrible home life. Many of them are the products of domestic violence. Many of them are the products of seeing sexual violence in their homes, and they need to know, what does a healthy relationship look like? What do I do when I'm angry? How do I react?
How soon will children be able to sign up for these courses, or do you know yet?
Well, the schools have to be able to have permission to offer them, and that has to come from a higher level in the school, and we are working to get that implemented now.
What about we talked about lenient sentences. The stigma of having to register as a sex offender is a pretty serious deal. Do you think that's an effective deterrent from somebody committing an act of sexual assault or rape?
Well, maybe, but when there's so few cases that ever go to court, then there's so few ever prosecuted, I'm not sure that it's really making much of a difference at this point.
And would you say that most attackers, most of the offenders reoffend, or is it just
definitely. There's certainly certain people that are reoffenders. And there's certain patterns of people that will do that.
What can we tell our young people, boys and girls, for those of us who are raising them, trying to at this point, what sort of message can we give them about relationships, what's right and what's wrong, and how early should we start that?
Well, I think we need to start as early as kids are able to begin going to school, that they need to, especially boys, we need to treat them that, to recognize women as equals, to treat them respectfully, and we need to treat them about not just being bystanders who do nothing, but to get involved if you see something that doesn't look right. If you see people involved in something that's, turning violent, to know how to intervene, how to seek help for those people. We need to treat our young men how to react in ways that are healthier and not violently. And girls need to have more self-esteem and more self-worth so they don't seek the wrong partners.
And so let's start with the girls. How do we boost them? Take away their social media and make them realize that life is more than...
Oh, no, it's not going to be possible to take away social media.
Well, how do we let them know that they're loved and valued?
I think a lot of that comes from in the home. A lot of that doesn't come from in the home will have to come from in the school. But as you said at the beginning, it's a rape culture.
It is.
All of the signs point to, women being objects, and we have to turn that around.
There is the mentality among young boys that snitches get stitches, and so whatever they witness, they're scared to report it because of the repercussions from their peers. Any suggestions on how we can help those boys not be afraid to report things?
Well, just let them know that they won't be criticized if they do report, that we'll take that information and do something positive with it and help those people that need the help.
When does rape and or sexual assault occur? Is there an age or a time period or a place in a young woman's life where it's more likely than not?
That's hard to answer because we have had even infants, unfortunately, that have been molested.
That's
and
insane.
Raped. It is. It's really insane.
And have you seen those people prosecuted, and do you see sentences like the ones we witnessed here?
Sometimes, yes. Because it's a matter of whether they're going to, the baby can't testify, the young child may not be believed, and the adult can manipulate a jury.
Walk me through the process. Walk the ladies watching out there through the process of getting treatment. Once we call the Cumbie Center, what happens after that, after an assault has occurred?
Well, we can provide legal advocacy with them. We can help them know here's how the court's going to work, here's what you can expect from law enforcement. We can be there with them while they're questioned, provide support for them. We have support groups where they can meet with peers, other people who have been sexually assaulted, and a lot of times that's the best therapy for them, is just to talk about with other people in similar situations. We also have counseling to help them deal with the post-traumatic stress and the trauma that they've gone through. We have case management. If they need referrals just for basic needs of living, we can help them with that.
You haven't been at the Cumbie Center a very long time, but have you seen one of these victims go from their darkest hour to having hope again? Have you seen someone's life change?
We do have some good stories to tell, some good news stories of women who are getting their lives back together after these kind of events.
Well, what about offering any hope for, I mean, you told me that your last job was in the hospice field. Now you're working in the field of sexual assault. Do you ever have any reason for optimism or any hope that things are going to get better? And if so, just tell me why. Are we making any progress?
We are. We have new laws that are always coming out, people fighting for better legislation. And in Aiken, we have excellent law enforcement that has a heart for what we're trying to do, and they work hand in hand with us to make the situation better. And I do believe we'll get the youth violence prevention curriculum into the schools, and some of the community organizations. And people are really stepping up and taking an interest in what we're doing to help people.
Can you give us any warning signs that parents might be able to look out for, especially for their daughters, that things might not be going well in their relationship with their boyfriend or in general?
I think when the children start isolating themselves, withdrawing, not eating, not doing the things they normally do, that's probably a big warning sign.
All right, I want to give some information on how to get in touch with the Cumbie Center, but before I put that on the screen, I really just want to, well, as we put it on the screen, to thank you for what you do over there. I wish that you had no business at all. I wish no one showed up, but unfortunately they are. You heard the statistics at the top of the interview. They're terrifying. You can call 803-649-0480. You'll accept collect calls, won't you?
Yes, we will.
You can also go to the Cumbie Center's website, cumbiecenter.org. And, you know, back to the person who's scared to report things, you don't have to give your name. You can say, I suspect something's going on. Let Cumbie, let law enforcement take over, right?
Exactly.
Did I fail to ask you anything?
I don't think so.
Good. I just got word that we had about 45 seconds left, and I wanted to make sure, but I do want to make sure that people remember you, Susan Seldon, and know that you're always there to help people.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.